So we're going? Okay, excellent. All right, we actually, before the video started, we went over, we had students write out kathav in the perfect, and then also a thing comparing absolute and some plural forms as a test. So you'd want to be able to identify those singular and plural rules, and especially those on page 70. You have these 3 rules for the construct singular and plural, and you'd want to know what those are. And we also did actually a few exercises, but we're going to go over lesson 18 now. So you should pray if you haven't already, because we did. So have you? Okay. Construct forms of plural nouns in eam on page 77 there. So you can see that the eam, the plural nouns, usually the masculines have eam, and the ending is replaced with tsera yod. And the vowel reductions take place in accordance with the rules in paragraph 73. So you can see yamim, yameh, banim, beneh. And on zikanim to zikneh, where did this hirek come from in zikneh? Yeah, I'm asking you. You! Okay. Where did the plural come from?
The hirek came from reduced shawah.
The rule of shawah, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So first, what says rule 1 in the rule of shawah? What is rule 1?
Rule 1 is the seireh being reduced to a shawah.
Hey, by the way, do we have the thing so that he can be audible too, or is that?
No.
No.
I'm working on that.
Okay. So first he said, so the rule 1 is back on paragraph 73, which is that that unstressed seireh and comets are placed by shawah. So zikanim would go to zakanim with 2 shawahs in a row, but of course that's not tolerated. So the first shawah becomes hirek, and so that's how you go from zikanim to zikneh. And so that's what happens with divarim to divrei and anashim to anshe as well. But in anashim, because it's a hatef pathak, you can't have a hatef pathak and then a pathak, so can't be. So the comets underneath the noon goes to shawah. But here, even though you are applying the rule of shawah, because it's a hatef pathak, it goes to pathak instead of hirek, like in divrei and zikneh. If that was too fast, just reverse the video and watch it again. Okay? You could do that. All right. Disyllabic nouns with penultimate stress. These are segulate nouns. In other words, if that's a new term for you, it's ones that have these 2 segals, like melek and a, or in sefer and shoresh, it's these 2-syllable nouns. The second one always has a segol. Most of them are 2 segals, but you also have ones like B and C. But those are segulate nouns that are like this. And here, the plurals, the first column on a malakim, avadim, karamim, etc. Those all, the normal absolute plurals are just regular. You have shawah, comets, and you can notice if you go down that column, everybody has shawah comets. So that's not a problem. But then in the construct plurals, you have all the ones that in A that we've learned so far, malkeh, avdeh, karameh, all those have pathaks. But as he mentions on page 78a there, nouns like melek with the first syllable of segol have pathak or hirek in the stem syllable of the plural construct. So there are going to be some that are going to come up that will have hirek, but all these ones that we've learned so far all have pathak. So that's kind of nice, but there are ones that have a hirek. And nouns like sefer with a seireh in the first syllable, they will have either a hirek or a segol. So you can see book, sefer, the absolute form is sefarim, and then sifrei, and then shevet, shevatim, shivte. But then with herds, Eder, Adarim, Edrei. So there you have the segol instead of the hirek. Nouns like shoresh have a kametz hatuf. So shoresh, sharashim, sharshe. And how do we know in sharshe that is a kametz hatuf underneath the first sheen and not a kametz?
The comments in the shawah.
Okay, it's a closed syllable. Closed syllable, and there's no, what's that little line that goes to the left of the comments in case it's a... Starts with an M. Metheg. Metheg. So there's no metheg, and so it's a closed syllable, so you know it's a kametz hatuf. And the transliteration tells you. But that's not the best way to know the transliteration. Of course, that because the Bible doesn't give you transliteration. So yeah, so that's good. Good job. And then you have some ones that are irregular, and he gives you those there. For the feminine nouns, an oath. So the oath remains in the construct form. So you get to keep your oath, which is a good thing in the construct. And here, again, the segulate nouns, if they have plurals and oath, then you don't know for sure whether it's going to have... it's the same thing as A, B, and C on that page above. So shame, shamoth, shemoth, the sheen goes to shawa, and that's rule 1 on paragraph 73. Lave, liboth, a little bit irregular plural, but that's not what we're learning here. And liboth, the construct form doesn't change because nothing can get reduced. Then you have these segulate nouns, nefesh, cherev, the normal absolute nefashoth, and then nafshoth. So there's a pathak underneath the noon, but there could be some ones where you might have a hirek instead. Same thing with cherev, cheravoth, and then chervoth. Again, you don't know that it's going to be a pathak, not a hirek. And then the construct plurals of feminine nouns, givah, malka, take the same vowel as a singular. With the vocab, notice that adam, man, can be collective for mankind. I will point out that the generic term for man in the Bible is adam, so actually there's a biblical basis for keeping he or his as the generic pronoun in English, despite feminism. Adamah is related to Adam. Earth, ground, soil is related to Adam. You have the other words there, behemah. And you can use some of these terms around the house. You see the caterpillar come in your house, you can say remes, remes. The creeping thing is in here. You could even put it on your spouse. Say remes. See what she thinks of that. And then, I don't know what would happen at that point. She might call you a behemah, a beast, for having done that. I don't know. Maybe not. So then you have zakar, a male, and nekeva, a female. Shabbath, Sabbath, and then you have the word for 6 and 7. Not too much more to say about the vocab there. Except notice the 3 words often confused. Che, the adjective. Chaya, the living creature. And chayim, lifetime. You could see why those could be confused, but at least they're related in meaning. If you look in the answer key on page 864, he says, the construct plural should not cause difficulty if the principles governing the formation of the singular have been grasped. Once tsereyod has been substituted for im as an open and hence long pretonic syllable, pretonic, of course, meaning before the accent, or oath left as an unchangeably long vowel, one may point backwards through the word quite regularly. Remember, 1, the rule of Shua, 2, that unstressed closed syllables have a short vowel, 3, that unchangeably long vowels must not be reduced. The only difficulty is caused by the segulate nouns, where the short vowel required by the rule of Shua is not always hirek. So there's always a short vowel, but it's just not always hirek. And the correct vowel is determined by complicated rules, and the result is what Lambden says, page 78. And then also, I'd like to point out that on exercise 3D, you need to say nothing, and the word for nothing hasn't been introduced yet. Ma'uma, you can actually just look over there in the answer key. Ma'uma is the word for nothing, or anything rather, and you stick the word not on it, and you have not anything. And actually before, there was a time that we didn't get on the video here that we actually did the first few of exercise A. And so we already did A 1 through 4. And the answers to A 1 through 4 were the men of the city, the wives of the king, the enemies of the people, and the houses of the city. And houses, if you didn't know what the plural was, it looked different. Exercise E, lesson 2, had that. So that was a little bit quick, but there was some factors in there. So you can, take your time, pause the video, do those exercises, and see if you get that and understand the vowels that are going on in exercise A1 through 4. And we also did D3. So D3, he gave money to the first woman, but to the other, he gave nothing. So what is, do you want to write that on the board? I don't know whether the red or the black will work better.
I think
The red? Okay.
usually. This didn't have a construct change, did it?
That's a good question. Is there a construct chain
I
in here?
haven't seen it of, so,
Sometimes in the lessons, you'll notice that
because he kind of does a dynamic equivalent thing, so.
he does do some dynamic equivalent thing, yeah. But usually, like, the specific lesson stuff is more in the A, B, and some of the translation ones later are more just like everything you've learned up to that point. So if there isn't something specifically to that, what you just learned in there, doesn't mean you necessarily did anything wrong. Yeah, there's no construct chain in there.
Wait, is it he gave, right?
Yep, it is he gave. Hey, Tove. It is now, it was I gave was being written up, and now it's going back to he gave. right. Here. This is a bad sign. I gave you the marker to change the things.
I was going to say, there's corrections.
There are, but it's generally pretty good. Okay. First, let's see. In the first word, Nathan, there's one thing that should be changed. Oh, actually, yeah, that's... Well, no, it doesn't need dagesh. No. It's not a bagad kapat. But it needs a final noon.
Oh, yeah.
So you can extend that. Nathan kesef. And actually, speaking of adding dageshes, there is a word in the... good. Nathan kesef. The Hebrew to English, of course, is harder than English to Hebrew.
Yes.
I mean, wait, the Hebrew to English. No, I flipped that.
English.
Yeah. Okay, good. Now, the sentence says, he gave money to the first woman. How many women are getting money here?
Yeah. This is plural.
And that's plural, yeah.
So it would be...
Remember, it's irregular, so it's not less like nosh. Man is ish and woman is...
A. Right?
Well, that would be the construct plural. Ish, and then it's isha. So it doesn't even look like nosh at all. You just have to... La isha. Okay. Good, excellent. La isha. And then isha does have a dagesh in the sheen too. Yeah. Okay, so Nathan kesef la isha. So he gave money, silver to the woman. Very good. And now woman... Harishon is the masculine form of first. So you're going to want the feminine on that. Well, now that's plural.
So it would be Shona.
Good, yeah. Harishona, yeah. Tov ma'od. Harishona. Good. And then actually key is, what you said there is because he didn't give money to the other woman, which is possibly maybe why, but the sentence just said but, not like because. And so you can just use wow on the instead of a key. So yeah, you can just use and. The only thing is you don't want to put the wow on the verb because it actually, you'll find out later with the imperfect that actually changes the value of the verbs. Then it would be like, and he will not give. So you'd want to change the word order a little bit and put the wow on like the acher or some other word. Yeah. So
this wouldn't be la'acher, or no, it would be...
Yeah, la acher would be fine, except acher also is masculine, so you're going to want to feminize that. And that is a word in this lesson. It says acher, another feminine, achereth, masculine plural, acherim, feminine plural, acheroth. So if you want to use, it's achereth.
Achereth?
Yeah.
Where are we at?
It's the second to last vocab word.
Okay. So this would come down here then.
Let me see.
Verb change.
La achereth.
The other, he did not give.
Lo nathan. That's good. Yeah, you could just put the nathan, like put an arrow between lo and ma'uma. Yeah, good.
He gave.
Yeah. but to the other he did not give anything. So Nathan kesef la isha harishona wa la achereth lo Nathan ma'uma. Good. Tov ma'od. Would you have done better? So, yeah, you can see English to Hebrew can be challenging, but that was good. That was good. That was quite good. You learn a lot doing it that way. All right, any questions on Lesson 18 before we go to Lesson 19? No questions. Okay, Lesson 19. Here you have the independent or subject form of the personal pronoun. And this is common enough, it really ought to be memorized. And you can kind of see why. So you have ani, I, or anoki, also means I, two different forms of saying I. Ata, you, masculine singular, or just thou, if you want to keep some singular. I would suggest keeping some singular plural distinction, like if you're not going to say thou and thy versus you or ye, which if you don't want to because it's archaic or whatever, it's fine. But then I would make you like lowercase and the plural all caps or somehow so that you regularly distinguish them because they're different words. So ata, thou, at, thou, feminine singular, who, he, she, anachnu, we, atem, you, masculine plural, aten or atena, you, feminine plural, haim or hema, they, masculine plural, and heina, they, feminine plural. Let's go ahead and say those together, and when we say them together, I'm going to say atem or atena, and haim or hema. Okay, so here we go. Ani, anoki, ata, at, who, he, anachnu, atem, aten or atena, haim or hema, heina. Good. And like I said, that you should memorize that because just think about how common those words are. Now, both ani and anoki both appear pretty frequently without much difference in meaning or range. You have these rare alternates, he says. The second feminine singular, once rarely it will be ati instead of at. And you can also find nachnu and anu instead of anachnu for we. And the feminine plural forms are also quite rare just because you don't have groups of women going around all the time doing things. And once in a while, he says aten, you might find attain. And then in the Pentateuch, this is worth being aware of. The third person in feminine singular is spelled he instead of he. So he says the masculine form is written. He just means the consonants there, but the feminine form is read. So in the Pentateuch, he is what you see instead of he for the feminine. So everywhere else you have he for she. Sends word he for she. We're going to say something about that in a second. But notice the word for she, feminine singular, is he. But in the Pentateuch you have he. But it's read, like if you were in a synagogue, they would read it as he, even though it says he. Okay? So he says the reason for that is obscure. In other words, we don't know exactly why Moses did it that way. But he did. And it's not necessarily like maybe like an older form necessarily. It might be an older form, but like, Joshua is right after, he's Moses' disciple, and Joshua doesn't do this. Or Job doesn't do this, or other old stuff. So why it's that way, it is that way. It might be an archaic thing, but it's hard to say for sure. But the Pentateuch will consistently have he. And if you want to read it, say it as he, that's fine. If you just want to say he, like it is in the rest of the Bible, which is how it's typically read, that's fine as well. But you want to be aware of that. Otherwise, you'll come to that and say, what is this? Haim and Hema are both frequent, but Haim is dominating in the Pentateuch, while Hema is commoner in some of those other books, Samuel, certain poetic books. You can have these independent forms of the personal pronoun as the subjects of sentences, like Ani Tov, I am good. Ani Cholek, I am walking. Ani Ish, I am a man. Ani Babayeth, I am in the house. And you can also, it can be used in disjunctive ways, syntactically giving certain things. Sometimes, if it doesn't need to be expressed, you can express it to emphasize the subject. That is possible. And the answer key, I'm going to read what the answer key says here too, because he says something useful about this as well. On page 67, on the bottom, he says, it will be noted that, although Landon correctly describes the use of the independent forms of the personal pronoun at the bottom of page 82, he does not specifically mention their use with a participle. When a participle is used verbally, as in several of the sentences in exercise A, it must have a subject expressed, whether noun, proper noun, or pronoun. With the verbs in the perfect and imperfect tenses, and of course you don't know the imperfect yet, their inflected forms mean the subject does not have to be expressed separately. Okay? So with a perfect verb, if it's expressed, it might be emphasis of some kind or whatever. With a participle, you have to have it. So, questions about those forms of the pronoun? Okay. No questions. Lo. You have interrogative pronouns. Me is who, and ma is what. So, somebody taps you on the shoulder, you say, ma! Draw back and say, I'm just saying what in Hebrew. Oh, okay. So, something you can help you remember me and he and who is you can say me is who and who is he and he is she. Did I give you that yet? No? Okay. So I wrote that in the margin here. So me is who and who is he and he is she. So me means who means he, and he means she. So me is who and who is he and he is she. So some instances there. Mi asa eth hadavar hazeh. Who did this thing? Mi at. Who are you? And that's a good question if you don't know. And at is feminine singular. So who art thou? Feminine singular. Bath me at. Whose daughter art thou? Here's an important question when you have daughters. Lemi nathata eth hakesef. To whom did you give the money? So you want to know who they gave money to. All right, and the form. Then you have ma, the word what, and the form there depends on the beginning of the following word, and you have, but not quite as consistently as with the definite article or the conjunction wow. But this will cover most instances. So ma is the sort of default form, what, here. Before resh, hey, and aleph, use ma. Before ayin and chayth, use meh. Before non-gutturals, use ma plus doubling of the first consonant in the following word. All right? And if you recall, you don't need to flip back to page 8 right now if you don't want to, but if you remember with the article, resh, hey, and aleph are the ones that frequently get the hey pathak to hey comets, while ayin and chayth are the ones where you can sometimes get hey segol. So there is some similarity if you compare the article rules to these ones here. But you might just have to learn it. And you can often have the forms followed by makef. What's a makef? Dash, good. Okay, and he says both me and ma are sometimes followed by demonstrative pronoun better left untranslated. And I would disagree with that. I think you should try to translate it because God put it in there. So, for example, you have mazoth asitha. He says, what have you done? You can say, what is this that thou hast done? Then you would translate each word. So, ma, what, zoth, this, asitha, thou hast done. So, what is this that thou hast done? Something like that. So, I would suggest trying to translate each word since it's in there. Any questions on 82? All right. I am giving you these ways to use them in real life because it does help you learn it. So just don't scare people if you say "ma," and they don't know what you're talking about. Some more prepositions: el, al, tachat, and achere. And these take a different set of endings. I wrote in the margin what the endings are on an X. So I'm going to put those on the board. And if you want to pick one of these four and just memorize the paradigm, I mean, ideal, I guess you would memorize it for all four, but at least one, since these are a different enough set of endings. Or you could just memorize the endings and remember they go on these words, I suppose. But these are the pronominal endings for these words here. So unless your book is borrowed, you might want to put these in your book too. Somebody else's book, then probably shouldn't write in it. But writing in books is a good thing. Yeah. Use books with notes in them are interesting. Yeah, it's possible. But you find that out ahead of time if they're going to appreciate it. The book How to Read a Book by Mortimer Adler is a great book that will help you read books. Know how to read books the rest of your life. Yeah, it's a real book called How to Read a Book. And it's a very good book about how to read books. All different types. To the most profit.
My professor recommended that book.
Yeah, I'm not surprised the professor recommended it. Mm-hmm. You do need to know how to read a book to read that book, but it will help you read books better. Now, if you think that X is a Hebrew consonant, you should review some of the earlier lessons. Unless you write your olives really funny. Those are olives? No, these are not olives. These are X's. Yeah. Hey, I guess it's good I said that. Yeah, so this is just the rest of the word, okay? And these are the endings that are tacked on. So no, those are not olives. Those are just English letter X's with the endings. Sometimes I like to write in a book in pencil, though, because then if I think that what I wrote was kind of foolish or it was wrong, I can go back and change it. So it's not permanently set in stone.
I would keep it in pen, and then just write your new note in there saying, I changed my mind about this, and this is wrong. So that way, when you ever reference it again, you know not to change your mind again. If you ever forgot.
That's true. It's true. Depends how much marginal space you have, too. In the Bible, I like to write in pencil. But some other books, I do write in pen. Like in this Lambden, I have both pencil and pen in here. And of course, these are little accent marks because that's where the accent is on those syllables. So, accent, accent, accent. You got it? Okay. Let's read the actual ones on one of these words. We'll do the first one, which is as good to memorize as any. These are very common prepositions. To and upon and under and after. That's el, al, tachath, acharei. El Al is also the Israeli airline, but I think that's different. Okay. Let's read these together, the a, lay, and so on. Actually, I'll read it first, and then we'll read it together. I'll read it first one time. A lay, a layka, a layek, a live, a leha, a lenu, alekem, aleken, alehem, alehen. And notice that you have that, when you have those bigger endings on those plural, you have the hatef vowel. It's replacing the tsere, which is to be expected. Okay, let's read that together. A lay, a layka, a layek, a live, a leha, a lenu, alekem, aleken, alehem, alehen. We'll do the next one too, just because I'll read it and then we'll read together. Ale, aleka, alayek, alive, aleha, alenu, alekem, aleken, alehem, alehen. Okay, together. Ale, aleka, alayek, alive, aleha, alenu, alekem, aleken, alehem, alehen. You can do either way. You could either memorize the endings and remember these four, or you could just as well just memorize the endings on one of these. For translating English into Hebrew, you might either memorize all four, just look back. For Hebrew into English, if you remember the preposition, they're recognizable enough that you should be able to figure it out. But there are a few little differences that crop up that you might not notice. On the next page, you have tachath and acharei. So takte, takteka, tayek, taktai, takteka, taktenu, taktekem, takteken, taktehem, taktehen. Now, notice on that, what vowel is underneath the cheth on takte, takteka, etc.? Now, how come the cheth can have a shawah? I thought cheth didn't like to have shawah. It needed a hatef vowel.
Because I think it has something to do with the tau, the second tau having a dagesh.
It is somewhat related to the second tau having dagesh. That's a silent shawah. See? And silent shawah, you always have to have something underneath it. So at the end of a closed syllable, you could have one of those consonants, the aleph, the cheth, the hey, with a shawah instead of a hatef vowel, but only if it's a silent shawah. So vocal shawah, you're not going to have that. But silent shawah, because silent shawah is almost treated like nothing. Like in the transliteration, there's no shawah written, see? So you can have a silent shawah underneath those consonants, but not a vocal shawah. So that's why you can have tak, te, tak, teka, etc. So that is valuable to keep that in mind. And then I'll read acher. Acharei, achareika, acharayek, acharai, achareha, acharenu, acharekem, acharehen, ken, acharehem, acharehen. Okay, any questions about lesson 19? I don't think it's too bad. I think you just stuff to memorize.
What's the difference between like anu, ani, and all those compared to like othi?
Wait, what was the question? Which word are you asking about?
Like I, me, we,
Oh, okay. I, me, we.
because you have the variation of the direct object marker.
Oh.
I, me, we.
Oh, you mean, so the question is, what's the difference between just having the subject form, Annie, Enoki, and say having the first person ending on the object marker?
Mm-hmm. It's in page 31, paragraph 38.
The difference here is on 38 is, let me see if I can give you a sentence here. Like on the bottom of that page, the king is sending them to the city. Their otham is them, but it's the object of the verb. So the subject of that sentence is the king. Okay? So these forms on page 82 are the subject forms. So that's the difference. So like you might say, Haim sholeach otham el ha'ir. That would be they are sending them to the city. So good. That's a good question. Good question. Any other questions on lesson 19? All right, in the vocabulary, you have Nachash, snake or serpent. Remember, there's also that king of the Ammonites, Nachash, so his name meant snake. Ezer, help or assistance. So, Ebenezer, rock of help, stone of help. So, Ezer is help. Evan is rock. So, rock, stone of help. So, when you sing, Here I raise my Ebenezer, you can know what you're talking about. Not think about Scrooge. Okay. Selah is a rib or a side. And this is not like Selah in the Psalter. It's different. And the concert form is irregular. Selah. Shir is a song. Like the Song of Solomon is Shir Hashirim, the Song of Songs. Shir, a song. Basar is flesh or meat. And Kal basar, he says, mankind, it's all flesh. Like where the King James says, all flesh would perish before me. I mean, it does end up meaning mankind, like everybody, but it's all flesh. So, Maweth, death. Arur is accursed. Nechmad is pleasant. Chakam is wise, or is an adjective wise, or it can be a noun, a wise man. Hechakam, the wise man. He says shar is to sing, compare shir above. The trilateral root is shir with a yod in the lexicon. So I would suggest just memorizing it as shir, even though in the perfect it's shar and you add the endings on it like that. Like those ones that we learned a few lessons ago that are only two consonants in the perfect. Do you remember what lesson that is? Yeah, but it's back there. Yeah, page 59. It's like Kam and Ba on 59. Shir is, or Shar. So it's like Shar, Shara, Sharata, Shar, Charity, like Kam. But the trilateral root is Shir, just like to sing. So, Ethmol is not a direct object marker and a mole. It goes dig in the ground, but it means yesterday. Ethmol, Tamol, yesterday. Achere, after or behind. Achere, Asher, after. Acher, after. All right, let's take a little break before we go on to lesson 20 here. Okay, lesson 20. Noun with pronominal suffixes. This is very common and something you do want to be aware of here. So pronominal possessions such as my book, his king, etc., indicated in Hebrew by suffixation, not asphyxiation, by suffixation of the pronominal element. The form of the pronoun attached to the singular are more or less the same as those used with prepositions already studied, which is a good deal. Major difficulty lies, as usual, in the alterations of the nominal stem rather than in the endings, which is more difficult in English to Hebrew than Hebrew to English. Here's the paradigm of horse, sus, the stem of which remains unchanged throughout. because, of course, just the long vowel can't get changed. So, susi, my horse, susaka, thy horse, masculine, susek, thy horse, feminine, suso, his horse, susa, her horse, susenu, our horse, susakem, your horse, susaken, your horse, susam, susan, their horse. Let's read that together. Susi, susacha, susech, suso, susa, susenu, susakem, susaken, susam, susan. All right. And I would definitely recommend memorizing that paradigm. Note, second person feminine singular, first plural person column plural always have tsere. So in other words, su sake and su say nu. Okay? And he says the prepositions are mixed in this regard. Some have comets, some have tsere. The schwa of susaka should be thought of as properly part of the suffix, sus plus eka, and not part of the noun stem. On the contrary, the schwa of susakem and susaken should be taken as part of the noun stem, susa plus kem. And it says the reason why will become clear below. Now let's see if you have a noun like devar, where things can get reduced. So there you have devari, devaraka, devarech, devaro, devara, devarenu, devarkem, devarken, devaram, devaran. So here, adding the suffix produces the same kind of reduction we encountered in the plural and construct forms. So in davar, the comets and the tsere, davar you add the e on the ending, and now in devari, the vowel underneath the daleth is now an appropriate tonic syllable, 2 before the main stress. So it goes open syllables, so it goes to schwa. So that accounts for the schwa underneath the daleth and all those first syllables. And then he says the second person, does that make sense? You following what we're saying? Okay. The second person plural, the second person forms are the only ones that require comment. As suggested above, the schwa of eka, the masculine singular second person, is taken as part of the suffix. This leaves the final stem open, devaraka, and the noun stem before this suffix will accordingly, in most cases, have the same form as a first person singular. So, if you look devari, devaraka, that's what he's saying with that. If this is a little confusing, I'm going to read Williamson, which may be more helpful than what he's saying here. The endings of the second person plural, however, are kem and ken without schwa. The final syllable of the noun stem is closed, devarkem, and the vowel, if possible, is shortened. The noun stem before these two suffixes, the kem and the ken, are most often identical to the construct form. To understand these stem changes, then, the suffixes must be considered of two kinds. Those beginning with a consonant, often called heavy, that's only kem and only ken, so that's only the second person plural forms are heavy. And those beginning with a vowel, all the rest are often called light suffixes. So that's everything except the kem and the ken. If you didn't quite follow that, I don't blame you. Look what Williamson says on 72. This might be helpful. It says, many students experience difficulty at first with the forms of the noun with a second person plural suffix because they do not seem to fit the rules of vocalization which have been followed up till now. In devarkem, the short pathak of the second syllable makes us think the syllable is closed. Bear. Doesn't that look closed? Sure does. Since unstressed closed syllables have a short vowel. In that case, if the syllable is closed, though, there ought to be a dagesh in the cough, since it does not follow a vowel. Alternatively, if the schwa is voiced, since there is no dagesh, we expect a long a vowel, comets, underneath the beth, instead of pathak. So what's going on here? Grammarians do not agree about the proper explanation for this. It is treated quite differently, for instance, in the two most widely used reference grammars. One senses to the difficulty Lambden has in his treatment on 86-87. In view of all this, it is probably best, at this stage of learning Hebrew, to reckon with a third type of schwa not previously encountered, We will call it the middle schwa, because it is silent enough to close the preceding syllable, but voiced enough not to require a dagesh in the begad kapat letter following. There is no way of predicting precisely when this schwa is used. Students will simply have to learn the relatively few settings, and that's good, relatively few, in which it occurs. These will be pointed out as we continue through the exercises. Suffice then to observe for the moment that it is used for second-person masculine and feminine suffixes, with both masculine and feminine singular nouns. So, does that hopefully helps a little bit. So, take a look at that davar and tell me if you have any questions about what is going on with vowels on that thing. Is it okay over there? Okay, good.
What's the situation with Devaraka?
The question is, what's the situation with Devaraka? Well, I'll write this on the board. Okay, so here's davar. And now we want to say, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. I don't know where I put the black marker. Oh, it's in my pocket. Oh. That's a funny place to have it. So you add the suffix, and the suffix is echa. Okay? So now this is thy word, but because this is an appropriatonic syllable, it gets reduced to schwa. And that's basically it. Now, because you might think this is a kametz hatuf, there is a metheg to indicate that's actually still kametz. And this is an audible schwa. So it's devaraka. It is, but this is okay. Again, okay. That might be, it is an audible schwa, but I think that whole, it just does that. Was that your question? Why the resh doesn't have like a hate vowel?
It seemed really odd to me.
Oh, yeah.
I was just looking at it. I didn't really grasp why it was like that.
I think that whole middle schwa thing that we just read might have something to do with it too. This is the ending. And this doesn't really... I'm trying to think if with other letters that... Yeah, I don't think that changes to a hatef vowel. I think it's always just paju, just that, when you stick it on a word. I might be wrong about that. But you just stick it on. Just stick this on. Just like that. Oh, that's a good question. I don't even have thought about that. You do have this ending frequently on stuff, and like it doesn't look weird to me, having read a lot of the Bible in Hebrew, but you could have it like this when it's on that ending. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. Was that your question?
I guess.
Okay. Any other questions about the davar? All right. Feminine nouns in ah. The ah changes to off before the light suffixes, and ath before the heavy suffixes. What are the heavy suffixes?
The heavy is hem and hen.
No, kem and ken, not hem and hen. It's not the third person ones. It's this, because the third person is just and on, not hem and hen. It's the kem and the ken. The second person plurals are the heavy ones. All the other ones are light, including the third person plurals. So here you have Torathi, Torathaka, Torathake, Toratho, Toratha, Torathenu, Torathkem, Torathken, Toratham, Torathon. So, that's how that works. Nouns with penultimate stress, like the segolets, melech, and certain other regular types, will be treated separately in later lessons. And then he gives you this big table here of the most common types that are we've kind of come across here. Now, he says, be sure the phonetic changes noted in the comments are clear. I'm not going to read every single one on the table because it's quite a big table here. But the reason, so he gives you the singular absolute in the first column. He says, with suffix 1s, in other words, with the light suffixes, this is the form. So like yad, yadi, so you would say yadi, yadacha, yadeik, yado, yada, yadenu, and so on. So that's the first column. With suffix second plural is the heavy suffixes, okay? So the kem and the ken, that's what the words do when they get the heavy suffixes. So that's why he gives you those two columns. And so all the other suffixes, you just stick it either on the one with a light ending or the one with a heavy ending. And then there's a few comments you want to be aware of. On the type 2 on page 88, he says, note aya to a and awa to o. Page 73, he talks about that. This aya to a and awa to o thing. Back on page 73, minor types. B, paragraph 75b, he says, all nouns of the pattern bayeth and maweth show this contraction, aya to a and awa to o. Bayeth to baith, maweth to moth. Besides that, I don't think there's that much to say about those. That isn't that crazy. There it is. Now we also have suffixes on plural noun. These have the forms given in the preceding lesson for L and al. So that's another reason to memorize those suffixes on L that we have on page 83, because those are the same suffixes as we have on plural nouns. So, when a noun plural ends in eem, these suffixes replace the plural ending. They should thus be thought of as a fusion of the plural ending and the pronominal element. So here, you could memorize these endings on sus, probably. So, I'll read them and then we'll read them together. Susei, suseika, susayik, susai, suseiha, suseinu, suseikem, suseiken, suseihem, suseihen. So in other words, what this is if you have plural horses. So my horse, you use the one on page 86, susi, susika, so my horse. This is my horses. Thy horses. Thy horses, feminine singular. His horses. So, and you could see that's going to come up a lot too. So this is an important paradigm. Okay, let's say that one together. Susei, suseika, susayik, susai, suseiha, suseinu, suseikem, suseiken, suseihem, suseihen. And then on the davar, on the third one, you have divare, divareka, divarayik. I want to make sure on your book, it looks like a shawa that's slanted underneath the yod in my book. That's really a hirek, okay? It's just some kind of typo thing. So underneath that yod, that's a hirek, not a slanted shawa, like a leaning tower of Pisa shawa. It's really a hirek that somehow in scanning or something weird happened to it. So that's divarayik. There. Divarayik. Then you have divarai, divareha, divarenu, divrekem, divreken, divrehen, divrehen. Note the stress difference when the endings of the second person, third person plural are added. Here, So the kem, ken, hem, hen in the plurals here. Here, the noun with two changeable vowels will undergo the double reduction met in the plural construct form. So, again, the comets and the tsere going away and so on. Questions about those plural suffixes?
Should I memorize the devar?
Did you memorize the devar as well? If you remember the rules, when you stick these endings on in the reduction, you should be able to figure the form out from the rules, like davar, you stick the ending on, the reductions happen. So if you memorize the endings, the a, the aka, the ayak, on sus, you're probably going to be fine. It certainly wouldn't hurt you to memorize that too, but if you just remember the rules, it's just following the rules.
I only have so much memory space.
Oh, you do? Oh, only so much memory space. Oh, okay. The hard drive is filling. You could take some of the English off the hard drive, delete a little bit of English, add a little more Hebrew. Not that much English to begin with. Okay, well, that could be a problem. All right. Nouns of the plurals and oath. You could take the Latin off your hard drive. That wouldn't delete much. So, nouns of the plurals and oath add these same suffixes, but directly to the plural ending without replacement. So, in other words, instead of eam going away and the ending stuck on, so with the noun plural with the eam kind of disappears and you have the plural suffixes. With the plurals and oath, the oath doesn't go away. It just stays there and you add the suffixes right on the oath. So toro the, toro the, toro theka, toro thayak, toro thai, toro theha, toro thenu, toro thekem, toro theken, toro thehem, toro thehen. And then he says the suffix ahem is occasionally replaced by am, as in avotham for avothehem, their fathers. A complete list of noun types is in Appendix A. And you can go to Appendix A and you can see all the different types of nouns in the whole book. And if you're in doubt, you can always go there. But for the most frequent plural types, this list here on page 8990 should prove sufficient. And here again, he gives you the absolute plural, then first person suffixes, which are all the light suffixes, and then the second masculine plural, which are the heavy ones. And so you just stick the other lighter heavy suffixes on those appropriate forms. And I'm not going to read them all now, but hopefully you can understand what's going on there. The oath plurals on page 90 have the same stem as the construct plural before all the suffixes, while the eam plurals have the construct plural stem only before kem, ken, hem, and hen. Then he says a noun with a pronominal suffix is definite. Therefore, a modifying adjective has the definite article. So, susi, hechazak, my strong horse. So there's an article on chazak, strong, because my horse is definite because of the suffix. Devarayu hatovim, his good words. Again, there's an article on tovim because devarayu, his words, is definite because of the suffix. Because it's definite with a suffix, when it's the direct object of a verb, eth is required, the direct object marker. Ra'ithi eth suso, I saw his horse. But then he says there's an exception when it's a part of a body, eth is frequently omitted. So shalak yado, he sent forth his hand. It could also be shalak eth yado, but sometimes with body parts it doesn't do that. But the rule is you need the direct object marker. Any questions about that lesson? That lesson is a little bit more of a bear than lesson 19, but you just basically have to memorize those endings, singular and plural endings. Okay, some vocabulary here. Chutz is outside. Chutza, hachutza, to the outside. Mechutzla, on the outside of. Chayil is strength or army, or it can be wealth. man of chayil, a man of, because you can do, if you're have wealth, you can kind of do a lot of stuff. You're strong, kind of, in money. And you also have gibor chayil. That would be a mighty man of valor. King James is a warrior or fighter. A gibor chayil is a mighty man of valor. Okay. You can see army for the strength. Like if you've ever read Shakespeare, he talks about the one power is coming to oppose the other power inside of their armies coming to fight. But they use the word power. This is his power coming to fight to make King Henry the king instead of King Edward or whatever. And so their powers are coming. It's similar sort of idea with strength and army being connected. Because if you have an army and the other guy doesn't, you're stronger. You could do things to him. Think about Russia and the Ukraine, right? Mispar is number or enumeration. Ein misparla, without number, innumerable, like Abraham's seed. Okay? And from ein mispar, without number, you get the idiom, you get mispar can sometimes mean numerable in the sense of few. So like anshe mispar, men of number, means you can count them, there are not that many of them. So if your chayil has anshe mispar, and your enemy's chayil is ein mispar, then you're probably in trouble. So, because his army is without number and your army is very numerable. Unless you're Gideon and his men, then it'd be okay because you have God on your side. Merkava is a chariot. You can use that for your car. You can tell your gune to come into the gune, wrong language. I'm sorry, it's Greek. You can tell your isha to come to the merkava, and you can ride off in your chariot. Sus is the horse. I don't know if it helps you at all. If you think like the Sioux Indians, like they would ride these horses and stuff. So Sus, maybe can help you remember that. Parash is a horseman or rider. And in the Second World War, when the Nazis were invading Poland, the Polish cavalry only had horses, and so they charged them. And of course, they all got killed. And so the Parash perished when they had to fight the tanks. Because, you're a guy on a horse with a sword and they have tanks, it's not a good situation for you. But maybe that'll help you remember Parash, horseman. Tsava is an army, or host of soldiers, or it can be an army of heavenly bodies, angels or stars and so on. And so it's used in the phrase of Jehovah of hosts or God of hosts, meaning God is over the heavenly hosts, the angels, the celestial bodies, and sovereign over armies in the world too. Ruach, breath, wind, or spirit. That's Ruach HaKodesh would be the Holy Spirit. It can also is a word used for wind or breath. Ruach. Tzur, rock cliff, or a support. God is your rock. He's your defense. That's what they mean there when it's a support or defense. Kahal is the Old Testament word for assembly or congregation. So the Kahal Yisrael, the assembly of Israel. Kir, wall. Chadash, new. Chazak, strong. And Rakab, to ride. All right. That's lesson 20. Any questions on lesson 20? I wanted to do a few exercises, but I also wanted to go over some of the Bible texts here. Did you do the lesson 15 to 17 translation? I should have told you. I don't know if I told you, but in lesson 3, or number 3 for lesson 15 to 17, there's actually a form that you don't know yet. And I don't think at least in my one, I didn't write that down. On the Yeshayahu 39, Isaiah 30, verse 9, the third to last word, Shemoah. Did I tell you what Shemoah was?
I don't know. I translated it as here.
Yeah, it is a form of to hear. It's actually an infinitive construct, which you don't know yet. So I should have told you that. Because if you don't know what an infinitive construct is, it's kind of going to make it a little harder. So I think we did 1 and 2 in class, didn't we? You don't know?
I remember.
You don't remember? Okay. Yeah, I thought we did. Okay, well, let's. What do you have? Go ahead and read number 3 there, and then you can give me your translation.
My translation?
Read it in Hebrew first.
He am. Wait, let me read it. I can't read my own print. He am Marie who Banim Kehashim Banim Lo Abu Shamoah Torah Yahuwah.
Okay. And how do you translate that?
I translate it as because that people are rebellious, sons of deception, sons not willing to hear the law of Jehovah.
Okay, it's not too bad. Not too bad. So key is like 4. So key am for a people, moray, or rebellious. So for a rebellious people, who, they. So like for rebellious people, they, and you can maybe they are. Banim kechashim, lying sons. So for rebellious people they are, lying sons, sons lo avu, sons who are not willing, and then shemoah is to hear, infinitive, which you don't know yet. Sons not willing to hear Torah Yahuwah, the law of Jehovah. That was pretty similar to what you said, I think. It's a little bit different. Do you have any questions about that verse there, the translation?
I don't think so.
Okay. How did you? Let's just hear your. You don't need to read the Hebrew. How did you translate Shofatim 13:21 and Mashlei 3:13?
The first one was, then Manoah knew that he was an angel of Jehovah.
Good. Yeah, that's right. Then Manoah knew that he was an angel of Jehovah. Okay.
And the other one is that a man is to find wisdom.
We must not have done that one in class. Ashrei is not that. It's from the word blessed, which is on page 80 of BDB. You have that. So I guess you must not have done that one in class. I'll show you page 80 of BDB. See. Yeah, right on the bottom of page 80, second column. Asher, Asher, happiness, blessedness. And then you can see plural construct Ashrei on the second column there, the second line. So Asher or Asher, compare blah. Noun masculine, only plural construct Ashrei, happiness, blessedness. And I think he even gives, does he give this verse here? This verse is listed on the next page, but in the list of verses. So that is actually, blessed is the man. Ashrei Adam. Blessed the man. Or happy is the man. Ashrei Adam. And then what did you say for the second part?
Is that a man is to find wisdom.
Okay. What is the parsing for matzah? Yeah. It is he. Well, give me the parsing.
It would be third person singular.
Good. Third person singular. Is it a masculine, feminine, masculine? Okay. Third person masculine singular. Is it perfect or is it a participle or something different? Perfect. So you said finding, which sounds like a participle. See? So it wouldn't be finding if it's a third masculine singular. Perfect. At this point, you probably say, blessed is the man who found wisdom. There might be some you might say who finds wisdom, something like that. But at this point, since it's a perfect, blessed is the man who found wisdom. Something like that. Chakma is wisdom. So, and I think in number 2, I think you got it right there. So that was good. Any questions about those lesson 15 to 17 ones? Here you have 4, and they're pretty interesting. There's that thing we just talked about in the lesson today, in number 4. Ki nefesh habasar badam. There you have that heb. That's the feminine. That's he everywhere else. Who is he? He is she. Who is he? Me is who, and who is he? He is she. So that's actually where he says he. That's actually he. It's the feminine.
How do you get the Hebrew with all the marks?
Question: how do you get the Hebrew with all the marks on it? These I just cut and pasted from accordance. That's how I got it to print. The reason some of it's smaller print and others is bigger is I try to keep it all, the verse in one line, because if I put it to 2 lines, the second half of the verse goes above the first half. So, oh well. But, yeah, a free Bible program might not even give you some of the accentuation and stuff.
Yeah, because I saw an interlinear on the internet, and it has a vowel points when most of them don't.
Well, that's good, yeah. At least it has vowels. No vowels, really, you're missing a lot. Like Online Bible, the Hebrew doesn't have vowels, and you're definitely missing a lot there. So you might have to just pay for it. It's worth buying. You can't use, well, it's not something to use for class, but okay. Let's do one of these for fun, and then the rest of the time we'll do some exercises in the book. So let's do number 2 here. Tehillim 14:3. And Tehillim is the Psalms. This is Psalms 14:3. So you can try to translate that. And if you want any assistance, I'm not going to do it for you, but I can tell you a few things. As these lessons go on, these ones go on, I'm actually giving you ones that are more theologically significant, and there might be more words you don't know, versus ones that you necessarily know all the words right away. And don't let me forget, next class we do want to go over all these for sure. Oh, I'm tired of looking down. It's okay. Students can be translating at the same time. They could stop the video too. I don't know, whatever. If you guys watching, if you finish before we talk about it, we're going to be doing exercises, the 18b, and we're going to be doing 20b, because I think those are some of the more helpful to learn these STEM things. Do you have any of the words yet there?
I got one word I'm working on.
One word, okay. First word?
No.
I got this as a program for you now. So you can just click an icon on your desktop and it'll tell you what to do.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me go back there. What does Tehillim 14:3 mean?
I put there is none that does good, not even one.
Okay, great. Yeah, ain is there is not. It's the negative. Oseh. What's the parsing of oseh?
It is
Okay, asa, good, which means good, to do or make. And what is the parsing, the rest of it?
it would be,
I don't know. It's an active participle. So way back in the beginning, remember it's the cholam tzere. So Asa, cholam sere, would be active participle. So, ein, there is not doing tov. There is none who does good. Ein gam echad. And gam is also or even, echad is one. So there you can see plainly the Old Testament teaching the universal sinfulness of man. This is quoted in Romans 3, of course. So all are sinful. Ein osei tov. Ein gam echad. All right, any questions on that right there?
So the column Sere is
Back.
a participle.
Let's see. I remember when he introduced it. Yeah, it's way back, whatever lesson was that he talked about. I'm trying to find the one. Yeah, the participles, okay. Yeah, right in the bottom of 18. Yoshev, Yosheveth, Yoshavim, Yoshevoth. This is osei. So it's a masculine singular participle. Just like Yoshev. So osei is doing. And here it's kind of substantival. None. There's none doing good. No man who does good. All right, Tov Ma'od. Those are fun to do, and you have the rest of those there for homework. But let's do some of the exercises to make sure you kind of grasp those. So maybe you can write on the board lesson 20, 1 and 2. 20B, 1 and 2. Yeah, page 91. 20B, 1 and 2. So your people, your tree, your birds, your song, advice, and small cattle. And I want you to know the vocabulary too, but the main point here is to get the endings. So if you can't remember a word, I'm happy to kind of remind you so that you can get the endings here, because I want to make sure you get this ending stuff. Well, here what he's looking for is the ending. So like on people, the word, I'll give you the first one. On am, thy people is amika. So that's what he's looking for. So remember on paragraph 85, you have on susi, susaka, susek, suso, susa, susenu, suskem, susakem, susaken, susam, susan. So thy horse is susaka, thy people is amika.
Okay, so
You go ahead, you can write that up there too.
your people would be
And on page 90, in that list which you didn't read of the noun types, you actually have am with the endings. So that's the plural endings. You have the singular endings too. Page 87, you have the singular endings. So am, me, am, chem on page 87. So the second one, 87, you have am, me. So that would be my people. So thy people would be very similar. You add another light suffix instead of the first person suffix. You add the second person singular suffix. Yes, amica. That's very close. That's thy people, feminine singular. Good. Amica. Tov ma'od. Good. And let's see the next one then. Thy masculine singular tree. Good. Eights.
Eights is that's how you spell eights normally, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, I mean, they have the final form of the letter, but that's it.
Oh yeah. So this would be reduced to.
Well, it's not pro-Pretonic.
No. Okay. Keep it.
Yep.
Eights. What is it? Masculine singular.
Yeah.
Eight's ka.
Good. Eitzaka. Yep. Tov ma'od.
It would have a big ash, right?
Nope. No, my gosh. Yeah, that's not. There's no. This am is irregular. That's why I meant that appears in the plural too. Amim. It just appears. That's an irregular thing. The ending is just echa. So there's no dagash. That's just something that am does. Birds.
Your birds. Am I on the right page?
You are.
Your birds. So birds is oaf.
Mm-hmm.
Is that how you spell
Oaf.
oaf? Or is it with
Yep.
the vowel?
Nope. Yeah, it's a cholam wow.
Okay.
So ofacha. Yeah. That's it. Tov ma'od. Excellent.
Number two.
Number two here, we're looking for masculine plurals. So these are the endings on page 89. Susei, suseika, susayik, susai, suseiha.
Heavy suffixes.
No, it's not heavy or light. These are for the plural noun. See? These are the ones on page 89. My horse is, thy horse is, his horse is. Well, on 86, it was my horse, thy horse, his horse, her horse. Heavy is just the kem and the ken, the second person plural. Oh yeah, this is a heavy. Well, yeah, you're right. It is a heavy suffix. It is a kem. It is a kem ken. Yeah, it's heavy and it is plural, both. And sheer is a new vocab word somewhere here.
Here was
Oh, I guess I just told you what song it is, huh? Tov? except that that's seer and it's sheer.
Oh.
Yeah. Sheer chem. Your songs, or excuse me, your plural song.
Advice is.
So I told you something wrong. Since it's song singular, it's still, I don't want to confuse you here. It is the ones on 86. If it was your songs, it'd be the endings on 89. So these are, it is exactly what you wrote, which is your song with a chem, just like on page 86. So I'm not trying to confuse you here. Because it's still your song, singular, not your songs. Okay, your advice.
Is that right?
It's hem. Well, your hem for, you put chem. Well, it's not a hey. Wait a second. Eitzah is a feminine, and so it's on page 87. Feminine nouns and have oth before the light suffixes and ath before the heavy suffixes. So the hey is going to change to something there.
Wait, where are we?
Page 87, middle of the page, feminine nouns and like eitzah, have oth before the light suffixes and ath before the heavy suffixes. So like Torah changes to Torah, the. That ath comes in. That's chem. You're on the right track. Let me show you, actually, this is going to be a valuable thing to learn. Let's say you want to see what this noun does with its different forms here. There's actually some sort of reduction situations here. Now, look in the appendix in the back under eitzah. If you get there before I do, you can let me know what page it's on.
Is this in some sort of order?
Yeah, alphabetical.
By English or Hebrew?
Hebrew.
Okay.
Say page 324. Actually, page 325, it's the middle of the second column. Eitzah counsel advice.
Okay.
And notice it says after that A54. So that's appendix A54. So go to appendix A, which is all the noun types, and 54, which is actually on page 297. And here you have these different columns. And those columns, on page 285, he tells you what those columns are. And the columns are the absolute singular, construct singular, singular with first person singular suffix, absolute plural, and construct plural. So Eitzah, what letter was it on page, what number, 54, right? Oh, it's right there, Eitzah. So Eitzah, the construct singular is Atzath. The singular with first person suffix is Atzathi. Absolute plural is Eitzoth. Construct plural is Atzoth. So here, what it's asking for this one is your masculine plural advice. So you're sticking it on in that suffix form. So you're going to have those changes from the vowels you have there. So from Eitzah, the Tsere is going to change to what here?
Pathak.
Yeah, the Hatef Pathak. Yeah. So that's Hatef Pathak. And what is that Pathak under the Sada change to? Good. Becomes comment. Comments. Except you have that's the first with the light suffixes. Here you do have a heavy suffix, which I don't know if he actually gives you this exact one here on this list somewhere. So you had, did you make it go away?
Yeah, I fixed that.
Okay. Yeah, you do have the heavy suffix. So you have the right 3 consonants there. So stick the consonants for the suffix on. Yeah, the chem. Good. And now, because you have that heavy suffix instead of the light suffix, this is a closed syllable, and it is Pathak. It's like Atsath Chem is what you have. Right? Yeah. Atsath Chem. Instead of Atsaw, like he has in that back there. So on page 297, the Atsathi, I'll wait for you to get there.
Okay.
So there, you see the Atsathi? Mm-hmm. So you take the suffix off. You have those 3 consonants. The comets goes to, on here, that's an open syllable, so it has comets. Here it's a closed syllable because of the heavy suffix instead of the light suffix. And so the comets goes to Pathak, and the rest of it is exactly like that. And I think he tells you that here too, somewhere. It does the same thing as on page 87, the Torah. So you have Torathi, Torathacha, Torathake, etc. Notice on the Kem and the Ken, the comets goes to Pathak. Torathkem, Torathken. So it's doing that. That was a little bit challenging. Let's do the next one here. Does that make sense? It's a little bit crazy.
That's pretty crazy.
I think when you do the rest of them, it will become less crazy. But I'm also like if you're trying to do the homework and you're having some trouble with it, we can talk about it. I'm happy to do that. No problem at all. So I showed you in the back. You don't need to look them up in the back every time. If you follow the pattern with the Torah on page 87, that will typically help you there. Here for cattle, he wants tzon, is the word he's looking for.
So,
Son.
Or would that be
Son Kem. No, that's right. That's right. Son Kem. Yep. Silent Aleph. Good. And try number 6, just with the plural, and this will be the last one here. On B, his words, his fish, his camels, his blessings. Words should be relatively easy because we actually have the form right in the book.
his words is
Now this one, the reason I'm doing this one is the plural the suffixes on the plural on page 89. Because now it's words instead of word.
this is like that, right?
Yep. Divariv. Good. His words. Now we have the one that's not exactly in the book. His fish.
Dog.
Yeah, fish or dogs. Good, except it's not a pro-Protonic syllable, so it actually keeps the comments. It's just dog eye. And then camels, gamal. What time is it here? Good. Now, in Gamal, it's just if you went back to the lesson where it is, the plural is has a few things a little bit different. I don't remember what lesson it is. We're out of time, but Gamal in the plural becomes well, there's a dagesh in there. Gamal. So it's going to be Gamal Lai. But that's just because Gamal is a little bit irregular. All right. I'm happy to help with those that have questions about how this stuff works. I'm glad we did a few of them, though, because I'm sure it would be even more crazy if you hadn't. And these are common. You may seem not that exciting right now, but you're actually going to get used to putting these endings on things. And you're going to be able to recognize them in the Bible. Let's read our passage. Actually, because it's time, I'm just going to read it to you. But you can go to whatever page it's on in Bamidbar. 253. All right. Yevarakecha Yehovah v'yishmarecha. Ya'er Yehovah panayu elecha v'chuneka. Yisa Yehovah panayu elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. All right, you are dismissed.